Dekaron is an old-school extreme action MMORPG that takes you back to a time where flashy special effects and endless monster grinds were the norm. A time where MMOs were more gory, filled with monsters that would explode into pieces, leaving a trail, or rather entrails, scattered around the battlefield. And admittedly, I have never really dedicated time to this game for reasons that even to this day I'm not even aware of, but I was reached out to nevertheless take a sponsored look at the game, and I figured, you know what, this is actually the perfect opportunity to go ahead and waste a couple days playing this game. Not only is there the introduction of their brand new Sagita Shooter Masterclass, but there are events going on like the Sagita Shooter Meister event, rewarding players with a celebration package, XP scrolls, and other goodies, or the Pierce package and Blast box that'll help you push through the game much like I did. If you want to download Dekaron or get in on any of this, click that link down in the description or the pinned comment below to be taken directly to the game. Now, I was tempted to go with the newest class because I feel as though more often than not, new classes get all the cool stuff. They get the flashiest abilities, they get the coolest looking gear. Probably the most attention from the dev team as well. The Sagita Shooter class in question allows for some serious AoE potential in the form of Pierce skills, Fire Elemental Blast skills, and both offensive and support skills in the form of shooter skills. The class excels at AoEing enemies, has an interesting blend of magical range damage, and provides some useful support benefits. However, when logging into the game for the first time, I noticed that there were 13 classes. Yeah, 13 goddamn classes to choose from. Several of those were magic users, leaving me a little conflicted with what I should go. Naturally, I went with the highest DPS mage because, well, you guys should know me by now. I main mage as a DPS because I am a bit of a pyro and I like incinerating things. Plus, I mean, I like explosions. And as a real man, I do not ever, under any circumstance, and I cannot begin to stress this enough, look at explosions. I turn away, I look the other direction, and I begin walking the other direction. Yes, I am genuinely that comfortable in my manliness. And don't get me wrong, the Sagita Shooter utilizes dual guns, it's a ranged class, and it has plenty of AoE potential, which is honestly pretty sick, but there's just something about magic that I cannot get over. You know what, maybe I should have been a magician when I grew up. So, after choosing my class, I logged into the game. I realized that upon selecting your class, you did not have the option of customizing your appearance, but I did notice that there were plenty of customization options found within the game itself. This is evidenced by the fact that I went from looking like this to looking like this. Yeah, and I'm gonna admit here, I did end up looking pretty damn sick. This outfit fits me just right. There were two different types of movement that I came across after checking myself out. You could use WASD like most modern MMOs, but you could also use your mouse to move, providing a bit of a semi-automatic routing system that made it easy to click for long distances when I was attempting to read the map and find the ideal route to take to my target. As this is an older school MMO, it does a lot less in terms of hand-holding, which is something that I definitely appreciate. Like, don't get me wrong, I enjoy easy questing as much as the next guy, but I also enjoy needing to use my brain just a little bit. Now, I know I don't typically, but nevertheless, it is good to kickstart it every so often. Speaking of navigating, the world is fairly large and open, albeit with segregated zones. What this means is that there's plenty to see, there's plenty to do, plenty to kill, but each area is split by a short loading screen. Each region has its own theme. I managed to move through 3 different regions in total. The starter area, which was your pretty typical city with outlying woods. Then I moved into a dark swamp and then to a frigid snowy wasteland. Questing took me all over each zone. It literally had me running around the entire thing, killing every type of monster present. Honestly, I never really felt like there was much downtime, if any at all, and thanks to the gear I obtained through the chests supplied to me as I leveled, I didn't really have too much difficulty overall. Boss monsters did take a little longer than I thought they would and left me needing to use some HP potions. But as I continued to level and unlock new skills, I began to group them up and AoE them all down. Speaking of unlocking new skills, Dekaron has both an extensive skill system and stat system. Every time you level, you gain stat points, allowing you to distribute them according to your own individual tastes. This adds an additional layer of depth to the game that most modern MMOs just don't have. I can be a complete glass cannon mage that has absolutely no focus other than maximizing my damage output, or alternatively, I can spec into a HP rich, very tanky mage that really just doesn't die under any circumstance. Knowing me, you guys should already be well aware the route I took, whatever provided me the maximum damage output. It just means healers will have to keep me up a little bit more frequently. But I mean, you know what, that is their job after all. That's why I bring you guys along. Granted, you know, you guys don't necessarily get paid, but that sense of satisfaction, that sense of accomplishment that you guys get when we work together as a unit and manage to accomplish something, even with me on your team, should in essence be reward in and of itself. Then there is the skill system. As a mage, I had multiple different routes I could take. I could spec into energy, fire, ice, or lightning. Each element had their own abilities with their own selection of unique effects, with specific elements having a larger focus on AoE damage and others focusing more on CC. I didn't really know what I was doing, so me being the idiot I am, I opted to just spec into every single element. And if you look at my hotbar, you'll see that I have a mixture of pretty much everything. This meant that at times I was slowing enemies down by freezing them. I then proceeded to light them on fire, then electrocute them, and it was not always in that order. The depth of customization that this game has by allowing you to craft the type of class that you want is something that I think every great MMO needs. Simplifying classes is never good for the health or the longevity of an MMO. Providing a surplus of different options means that you'll always be coming across new players playing in their own fun, unique way. And that is part of the heart of an MMO to me. Not necessarily being the best, but having fun with creating something that is genuinely unique to you and you alone. Oh, I also think I actually forgot to speak about the combat this entire time. But by this point, I'm sure you've already figured out the type of combat system that Dekaron employs. You select different enemies with your left mouse click and you cycle through them much the same way. As I opted to go mage, there were plenty of different AoEs that I had access to, which meant that I didn't ever really need to focus on a single target unless they were split from their group, or at least not when I was higher level. When I was lower level, there were plenty of instances where I could only ever target 1 or 2 monsters at a time. A, because they were just so split from one another, probably to make sure that the monsters weren't too densely overpopulated, overwhelming players. And 2, because I think I only had like 1 AoE up until like level 15 or 16. Ultimately, I think I made it all the way to level 70 by the time I finished recording this video. I experienced a decent amount of the game. I got to see the world, the combat in action, the diversity allotted me due to the stat points and the class trees. I got to move through several different zones and see the type of world that this game provides me as a player. Leveling was admittedly made easier due to the launch week bonus that was going on that provided a 400% XP and drop rate boost, but even without it, I feel as though the game moves at a moderate pace. Dekaron has systems in place that I wish other MMOs utilized. It definitely has that old school feel you find in MMOs made in the early to mid 2000s, and the nostalgia you get when playing an MMO like this is always a good feeling. And right now is the perfect opportunity to get into the game. They have a surplus of fantastic rewards to give players that begin the game, like the Sagita Shooter support, which rewards players with things like Parsa's Icy Crystal, a Jade Bracelet, the Sagita Shooter reward package, and so much more. I do appreciate being given the opportunity to really test this out, and if you guys want to yourselves, I urge you to go ahead and once again, click that link in the description and the pinned comment to jump into the game and test it for yourself.